Josh, are you familiar with the work of Captain Laserhawk?
Have I taken the wrong medication this morning? Because none of those words made sense to me. What is this?
Can I interest you in a video game? Based on Captain Laserhawk, a Blood Dragon remix.
Still, what words are they? Nah, I
Straight
understand.
face.
I understand what Blood Dragon is, but you're going to need to explain because I'm really lost right now.
Oh, God. Yeah, so this is written up over on Game Rant, who noticed that there's been a game registered with the European Ratings Board, the PEGI Ratings Board, called Captain Laserhawk Niji Warrior, which is based on the Captain Laserhawk Netflix show, which in itself is an amalgamation of various Ubisoft properties. Rayman's in it, some Far Cry references are in there, like the same with the dude, it was in Blood Dragon from like 2012. You know, the eye bit?
Michael, I only know him as Michael Bean.
Michael
I don't
Bean's
know
character.
his actual name.
Yeah, there's like a dude in Captain Laserhawk. Maybe it's Captain Laserhawk himself. I only could stand about 10 minutes of the show and I bailed on it. But still, the Captain Laserhawk Netflix show is Ubisoft property, and now there's going to be a Far Cry game based on the Netflix show, which in itself was based on every single Ubisoft property mushed together. Like I said, Rayman's in it. He's like a news anchor in it. I think Sam Fisher's in it at one point. It's the whole thing. There's a Rainbow Six team in here, but I'll explain that in a bit.
I know in a sense I've sort of been in isolation for 4 months, but how has this passed me by? This sounds like I've not seen anything about this. I've been on Netflix. I have Netflix. I've been on the front page. I've not even seen this advertised to me.
They barely communicated what it was or when it was out or whatever. It is kind of part of like Netflix's overall animation assance that they've got going on, which is a glorious thing to behold. One of the best things they've ever done. Go watch the Castlevania series if you haven't already. But yeah, Captain Laserhawk was Ubisoft's attempt to get in on that and be like, what if we did like a cyberpunky new age synth-backed anime? But it has, well, it's kind of anime, but it has like a whole bunch of different properties inside it.
I've obviously not seen it. I'm not going to comment on the quality of the show without that knowledge, but
fun.
It makes me like question Ubisoft as a company because they keep trying to do this, right?
Yes.
Not just in this one TV show, but they keep trying to almost make their own gaming universe like the MCU or something by obviously not connecting all of their franchises, but releasing things that have all of their most memorable characters and iconic characters together and just being like, yep, there's a mashup. We are so well known and well loved. This will work. We'll put Sam Fisher alongside the prince from Prince of Persia, you know?
But the thing is, like, yeah, at least they are like named characters who had like games and stories and voice acting. Like they keep doing this where they're like, it's a guy from Rainbow Six. Don't you remember him? It's a guy from Ghost Recon. And we're all like, that's the same guy.
Yeah, it's Sam Fisher and some guy.
Yeah, some guy, or like the dude with the beard from Wildlands or whatever it is. But yeah, so this thing, it's also like to that point, you know, they tried Elite Squad, Tom Clancy's Elite Squad.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
That was the first time where it was like, what the hell are you guys doing? I get the approach. I guess I was going to say it's admirable. It's fun to potentially try and make that work. Then in X-Defiant, it was like, each different class of character has different abilities. There was a spy from like Splinter Cell. This new thing, though, is a Captain Laserhawk game. It's a Far Cry game. And at the minute, it's only listed as being on PC, so I guess we'll see what happens with it. But it is written up by Game Rant as a multiplayer experience that tasks players with competing to eliminate the most opponents in the game of laser deathmatch, or in a game of laser deathmatch. They also write up that the word Niji, because there's a whole faction in the show called the Niji Six, but Niji means rainbow in Japanese, so they're just like a multicolored version of like a Rainbow Six squad.
Cool.
But they've kind of got like bazookas and different abilities and things like that. And one of them was like the main villain in the first show, the first season or whatever. So it seems like maybe you're playing as one of them, or maybe they'll all be fighting each other or something. Either way, a first-person Far Cry multiplayer game with potentially a squad-based edge.
Don't hate that.
Don't hate it. I don't think I care about it, but it reminds me a lot of X-Defiant. Like, let's just try and get in there. How do we get our own Call of Duty going? Because X-Defiant is currently still delayed.
Yes.
Like, they did the beta. To be fair, in regards to X-Defiant, most of the response to that game for the people who actually got in there and played it was like, it plays well enough. You guys made one of these. Like,
the response, at least initially, was like really positive surrounding that game. My theory about that is that they just wanted to get the hell away from Call of Duty in the finals, which were coming out at the same time. You know, get away from those, like, I don't know, especially in Call of Duty's case, you know, it's got that big pull. It's obviously well known. It's definitely would have outsold X-Defiant had they gone head to head. So yeah, my theory is like they've just delayed that until the sort of dust has settled in those games, and they kind of have a free window to attract people who might be getting sick of them.
Also, like, I still feel like there are so many publishers trying to fill the Overwatch hole. And it's like, even Blizzard couldn't do that with Overwatch 2. Like, that thing is done. Whereas, like, X-Defiant was like, what if it was Call of Duty meets Overwatch powers? And, like, obviously, that's kind of the way the Division went, where you got squad-based, lots of different squad powers, military powers in various games. But that's what this makes me think it'll be. Like another, like Rainbow Six with Overwatch powers, essentially, is what I think this will be. It's just worth chucking in, and we can circle back around on things. But microtransactions are mentioned, they're cosmetic-based, and the release date for December 19th, 2023.
Oh, just 2023.
Apparently, well, 2023.
I was going to say that was last year.
It can't be 2023, can it?
Yeah, maybe
2024.
Back, maybe 2024. It's fascinating because obviously it's a Far Cry spin-off. It'll be associated with that franchise, obviously. But it's interesting to me that Ubisoft keep trying to push their franchises into the realm of live services. Obviously, they announced that. I keep saying obviously, like they're not obvious. It's just a tick that I use instead of saying like or all the time.
Living online like me and you.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, terminally online. No, but they announced that Tom Clancy Ghost Recon game a few years ago. I can't remember the subtitle
Breakpoint
of
or
it.
something like that.
It was the one after that. That was like the last one they did. That.
You mean the one that got cancelled?
The one that got cancelled.
Yeah.
The one where essentially the point is they tried to turn it into a live service shooter. Yeah, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Frontline. They tried to turn it into a first-person live service shooter, and everyone said, what are you doing? Please just make a Ghost Recon game. That's all we want. Like, why does this have to be changed just so you can have a live service? And that's what this Far Cry thing makes me think of, honestly. Like, we're getting away from what the franchise is known for. Yes, it's going to be a spin-off. It's not going to be the next mainline game, but they are really pushing to have their biggest IPs attached to multiplayer games of this type.
How many more times are they going to try and make Blood Dragon a thing?
Interesting,
Like the Far Cry Blood Dragon, the original spin-off thing, I forget the exact year, I'm going to say like 2012 or something, had...
the original came out in 2012, Far Cry 3, so I think it would have been like 2013, so 10 years ago, you know?
Like, it wasn't very far after it, but that was like a memorable enough thing. It was like a pastiche of 80s action, and you had like lots of really cool, like a nice enough synthwave soundtrack, like Power Gloves on there. They're like a heavyweight in the synth scene. It was nicely done. And it wasn't massively for me overall, other than the music, but still, it was a cool enough little thing. And then when they did that Trials game, it was like Trials of the Blood Dragon. And it was like, you know, the Trials series where it's like the motorbike one. And they did like a version of that was like infused, crossed over with Blood Dragon stuff. And that thing, as far as I know, completely bombed. It was just like, everything's wacky, and it's a unicorn with a cat on its back with a gun. And I was like, okay, fine. And they kind of have this wing of their identity that is like bizarre, zany, whatever we can think of. And then they just class that as like, it's a Blood Dragon remix. And that's kind of what put me off the Netflix show once I started watching it, where I was like, there's hardly any rules to this. It's just all over the place. But I wonder like whether this is the one that makes it work. I personally don't think there's that much hunger for the Blood Dragon IP or the Blood Dragon feel to things, but they keep trying to make it work. And I wonder how much this is them ticking that box of like, let's have an ongoing squad shooter, let's have an ongoing military shooter. Because Rainbow Six Siege is like still going strong enough, more so on Steam.
Yeah.
But the other one, I know they changed its name, but the Quarantine one, they got name changed during the pandemic.
Yes,
Whatever
Extraction, I think it was eventually called.
That didn't really do much. Like, that just felt like a glorified additional mode kind of thing. And I just wonder, like, if you're Ubisoft going like, well, Siege blew up over time, what the hell do we do with this? Because we don't have another division. We have another division coming, but obviously there was the mobile one and whatever. I just wonder how many different approaches they can have to ostensibly the same thing.
Yeah.
And then how do you sort of mix that up? Because X-Defiant is... I'd love to know what the hell happened with that. Well, the demos, the betas, and then it's just gone again.
I am, going back to your point about Blood Dragon genuinely, I am genuinely intrigued, like, how much hunger is there for Blood Dragon within the fan base? Because similar to you, like, I really enjoyed Blood Dragon at the time, but I've not played that game in over 10 years at this point, to the point where there's a character from it starring in the show, and I can't remember who that character is or if they're involved in the original game at all. Obviously, it was remastered along with Far Cry 3 and is now available on next-gen consoles, but it does feel like they know they had a win with it. They know they created something interesting for the time. They had a lot of goodwill around it, and they've continue to go back to it over and over again to, like you said, try and make it a thing where it could have just been this really memorable one-off, as it was probably intended to be, but now it's kind of got its own weird sub-franchise spun out off of it. And that's kind of indicative of Ubisoft's approach just generally. It's like, we'll just keep going back to the thing that people liked, and we know we can slap its name on something and try to sell it that way, rather than make new things that can occupy that same space or garner that same, response. Like, they've obviously tried to replicate. There's obviously again. They've tried to replicate Blood Dragon's success since, like you said, they've gone down the wackier route with DLCs for Far Cry 6, Far Cry 5, what have you. But they've never hit like Blood Dragon did.
No,
so I wonder
true.
if they are continually trying to go back to that lightning in the bottle because they're just maybe incapable of making anything that resonates on that level. In terms of the wackiness.
Yeah, and as a overall point, and people can sound off down in the comments, like Far Cry, at least to me, hasn't been as strong as it was during Far Cry 3 and 4. Like that was where it was at peak. Like you had Michael Mando's Voss, and then Troy Baker's Pagan Min, and then Joseph Seed. I don't know what you call the dude that played Joseph Seed in Far Cry 5, but I feel like that was the tipping point of okay, you guys have done the crazy villain too many times in a row. We're getting a bit sick of how this thing plays and feels. And then obviously the Avatar game last year was kind of just felt like a Far Cry reskin. And Game Rant note at the end of their write-up that Far Cry 7 has already been kind of rumored. They're working on that. It's just that thing of you've kind of exhausted the feel of this over time, mixed with how exhausted the likes of X-Defiant and the Call of Duty Overwatch chasing stuff feels as well.
Yeah.
That maybe there is that Venn diagram crossover audience where there's someone freaking out that they're getting a Captain Laserhawk, online squad multiplayer thing, but I doubt it. Maybe, but I guess we'll see how it shakes out.